Over the 10 years Second Thought has existed, we've produced over 400 videos, racked up over 200 million views, gone through multiple iterations of the channel, multiple states and makeshift recording studios, grown from one guy and a whiteboard to a full-time team of 3, and now we're approaching 2 million subscribers. Not bad for a socialist channel. But I realized the other day that in all those years, we've done exactly one Q&A. 8 years ago, back when I was still drawing stick figures and silly cows. So I figured, why not do another one and show you all around the new workspace while I'm at it? We've had a lot of different setups over the years. I started out recording voiceover audio in a closet. When we switched to on-camera work, we went through several iterations of our studio setup, from repurposed bedrooms, to rented office space, to a commandeered guest room, then a living room, and now, because my poor wife got tired of being kicked out of the house with the kids while I'm recording in the living room, we've moved Second Thought HQ here, to what probably looks like the nicest space we've had yet. Movie magic! This is a shed. Okay, I'm underselling it a little bit, but this space started its life as a prefab 12x16 tough shed. It wasn't insulated, drywalled, didn't have a foundation, or paint, or a floor, or electrical outlets, or AC, or internet. Suffice to say, it was an ordeal getting this thing ready for the big leagues, but I think it turned out really well. Let me show you around. On one side of the office, we've got the OG Second Thought set. Desk, monitors, LED backlight, some art on the wall, pretty straightforward. Since I'm getting old and my back hurts when I sit for more than half an hour, I went for a standing desk so I could edit the podcast in relative comfort. I also hate having a rat's nest of cables, so I did my best to do some simple cable management underneath. I used the Open Grid Light system by David D, and all these channels are part of the incredible Underwear 2.0 by Hands on Katie and Blackjack Duck. They have a bunch more shapes and sizes, but I was lazy and just did all I channels. I do wish I had printed the full thickness open grid tiles for at least the surge protector and power brick section, since the light tiles are just a little too thin to keep a good grip. I'll fix that at some point. Speaking of printing, I 3D printed all this stuff, as well as my wall cleats and hooks, on Bert, my Bamboo Lab A1. I'm new to 3D printing, so I'm still figuring things out, but so far the A1 has been super easy and surprisingly useful. Next, I'm planning on printing some little trim retainer clips and other plastic bits and bobs for my 1992 Volvo wagon, which is way cheaper than buying a 50-cent part and then having to pay like $20 shipping from Sweden. To the right of the OG set, I've got my little gadgets and accessories storage and worktop. This is still a work in progress, but I've got most of my camera peripherals, storage media, batteries, and so on in these top 2 drawers, and this bottom one is reserved for my bookbinding materials. I've been learning to make journals and notebooks and stuff this past year, and I have really enjoyed it. Big shout out to the channel 4 Keys Book Arts, that's where I've learned pretty much everything I know. I was even able to make my wife a nice decorative hardcover journal as part of her 10th anniversary gift, and that was really special. Continuing around the room, we've got my little writing desk. I've been working on a sci-fi novel for a while now, and it's been really fulfilling. More and more, I'm realizing that it's so important to have creative outlets beyond just work. I'll keep you all posted as I get closer to finishing the book. I would love to get it published at some point, but that is for another day. I like to have a completely different setup for my writing, so I'm never distracted by work or other tasks. The monitor is an iPad that's been completely dumbed. Notifications are off, all the apps are locked except for Obsidian, which is where I do my writing. I've even turned the screen grayscale. It actually works really well. The keyboard is a KZZI i75 V2 low profile, and I absolutely love it. It's my favorite typing keyboard I have ever used. I highly recommend it if you're into low profiles. Here's a typing test for the keyboard nerds. I think eventually we'll move my wife's Cricut in here and have this office be like a dedicated crafts and creative project space where all our gear is safe from the grubby little paws of the children. Now you may have noticed that there are no windows in here. I got tired of always fighting the natural light, so I deleted the windows from the shed so I could completely control the lighting. Because of that, this space is always super cozy, and I can set the lights however I like. Usually I keep them low and warm. It's really relaxing, great for focusing on creative projects. On this back wall, we have our second primary YouTube set, and it's my personal favorite. I spent a long time figuring out how exactly to decorate this side. I wanted to have a living room or study vibe with lots of organic touches to soften the corners and flat walls. The wall itself is covered in acoustic slat panels from a brand that never responded to my emails to collaborate, even though they send all the other YouTubers this stuff for free. I paid for these myself, they are super expensive, but they look great, and they work really well to minimize audio reflections. They came with a couple of LED strips, which I think are a nice touch. You got your IKEA Kallax shelves over here. They'll be filled out with more decorations and books shortly. Right now I'm just using them to hold my other cameras and some light bars. These things are great, by the way. They come with these magnetic mounts so you can just pop them off to charge them. They're the same ones I have on motion sensor mode in the accessory drawers. I might run some charging cables directly into each of them so I don't have to remove and charge 12 lights every few weeks, but that's a low priority fix. If I remember correctly, the chair and the little drink stand are both from Amazon. I actually really like this chair. It is very comfortable, and it feels fairly high quality for how inexpensive it was. It's even cushy enough to keep my back from hurting if I want to sit down and edit the deprogram on my laptop for a while. All the main lights are Philips Hue. Some of them are just the white ambience, and some of them are RGB. There are a couple Edison bulbs around the room too. You gotta keep those on like 1% brightness or they're too bright to be on camera. The accent lights are from assorted brands. I think this little LED candle thing is super cute. The stars of the show for this back wall, which would be super dark otherwise, are a pair of Govee floor lights. They cast a nice glow on the wall and really give the shot some depth. I've also got this very long Govee LED strip that runs all the way around the room. I purposefully installed the baseboards offset from the wall so I could tuck the LED strip inside. Unfortunately, it's a little too close to the wall, so you can see the individual LED hotspots. I'm gonna need to figure out a way to diffuse those and make that a little bit cleaner. But again, low priority for now. Then the last main light, besides the more traditional lamps, is this frosted dome light over the study set. It raises the ambient light level in here when I'm just hanging out or writing or doing some crafty thing. Dark sets are nice for the camera, but it's a little too dark for everyday use, especially with this paint that we chose. So that pendant really helps. I still need to print a cover for the excess wire though. I'll get around to it eventually. For both this study set and the main set, I just swing this desk around so I have somewhere to anchor myself in the shot. I've never liked sitting in front of the camera without something to rest my arms on so I can gesture more naturally. On this long wall, we've got a few decorative acoustic panels from GIK Acoustics, G-I-K Acoustics, I don't know, they're great. They work really well and I think they look great. Very interesting design, and I thought it looked organic enough to complement all the plants around the office. Yes, all the plants are fake. There's no natural light in here, remember? I'm probably going to get a bunch more, if I'm being honest, to really fill the corners and blank spaces. If you've never messed with plants in your living and workspaces, I highly recommend it. It works wonders for your mental health. Fake, real, doesn't matter. It's a vibes thing. It really makes the space feel more intentional and less depressing. You already met Bert. He lives under this desk when it's not in use for recording, and I've got him in a basic enclosure with an air purifier stuffed in there. Right now I'm only printing in PLA, and most people say there's not much health risk there, but, you know, better safe than sorry, especially since I don't have much ventilation in here. And that's pretty much it. 2 main sets, a couple accessory angles if we need them, a whole lot of fake plants and adjustable lights. I'm really excited to shoot here and be able to fully control the look of the image, and I hope you all like it too. Alright, I said we're going to do a Q&A, which we will in just a sec. You all submitted a bunch of good questions, but first I want to answer perhaps the most common question I get, which is super important, and that is, what is the best way to support Second Thought? Now, I feel incredibly fortunate that so many people ask that question, so thank you. This project would not be able to exist without you. So to answer that question, there are a couple ways. The most direct is probably Patreon. They take their cut, you know, it's a terrible platform overall, but it is easy to use, everybody knows it, and most of the money goes directly to the creator, and that is incredibly helpful. I have a handful of different tiers, but everyone gets access to the same perks. Early access to videos and access to our patrons-only Discord server, which is a really fun, wholesome place. I try to do live Q&As there every so often, but that's been a bit of a challenge with the new baby and my daughter just having started preschool. We've all been sick for a month, and Evie has a biter in her class. Lucky us. Anyway, the Discord even has a book club, which is super helpful for those who want to work through theory together. But like I said, everyone from the lowest tier all the way to the highest has access to the same exact perks. I don't want to paywall stuff any more than I have to. So the higher tiers are just there for those who have the means to pledge a little extra money per month, which is greatly appreciated. Speaking of the Means TV is the other primary way you can support the channel. I've been working with the board for about the past year or so, and we've got a great creator program in place now. A percentage of the revenue from every sign-up goes directly to the creator whose link you use to subscribe, for as long as that subscription remains active. So, for example, if you used my link to subscribe, for every month you keep your subscription, I get a percentage of the cost. Or Hakeem, or Ugopnik, or whichever creator you most want to support. We all have our own unique sign-up links, and I'd encourage you to pick whoever you like best. Doesn't have to be me. We all benefit just from being on Means. It's a co-op, so every quarter, earnings are distributed to members based on a handful of variables which you can find listed on the Means website. Everyone on the platform is legally a member of the cooperative, which means we all have a real voice in its development. It's a really, really cool project, and I am proud to be a part of it. And of course, it's great for subscribers because you get to support your favorite channel directly, other principled creators more generally, and you get access to all the content, including a bunch of exclusive series, documentaries you won't find anywhere else, and a community forum feature. I've got my own original series in the works right now, so stay tuned to hear more about that. Anyway, Patreon and Means are the best ways to support the channel, but I'm sure you've also noticed that I work with Aura every couple videos too. They've been great. Very generous terms, they've stuck with me through all the brigading and the nonsense attacks by bad actors, and it's a product that I genuinely use and appreciate. So anytime I do an Aura read, you can find the link in the description, try it out for 2 weeks completely free, and it really helps to support the channel as well. It's just a one-time payment instead of ongoing. You can find links to all these different ways to support the channel in the description. Please do consider signing up for whichever you find most compelling if you're able and you'd like to support the channel. Okay. Water. If you're wondering why I'm wearing different clothes from a few seconds ago, it was a few seconds for you, dear viewer. Several hours from me, a faucet was left on inside, and now there are men cutting holes in my ceiling because it flooded. And also, I'm wearing different clothes now because my son Thomas, bless his 2-month-old heart, projectile spit up all over my nice white shirt. So, a little bit of a peek behind the scenes for you. This is not scripted, as you can probably tell. I've got all of your questions here. So I guess we'll just jump right in and do that Q&A. Stick around till the end if you can, if you got the time, because I do have a couple of questions for you, which I would love to hear your answers to down in the comments. Okay, question number one. Let me put on the armor of the Lord here. It's been a heck of an afternoon. Water. Okay. Question one, Saffron Music. Are we cooked? Yes, but we're like rare now, medium rare. If we get pulled out of the fire soonish, we'll be all right. Got some work to do. William. I wonder if I should censor these names. William D. Do you edit your own videos or do you have an editor? This one was edited by me, as you can tell, because it's garbage. We have a very talented creative director, Andrew, who's credited at the end of all these videos. He's the one responsible for the visual style of the channel recently, as well as all the, or very, very nearly all of the motion graphics, the beautiful cutouts, stuff like that. That is all Andrew. We've worked with a number of editors in the past, both full-time and contract-based, and through sites like Fiverr and stuff like that, YouTube jobs. But yeah, it's the core team is just 3 of us full-time, and we've just started experimenting with a new editor, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Andrew is the one responsible for how beautiful these videos look. Martin Stowe, 8190. What is a hobby of any sort that you've invested some of your recreational time into? I mentioned earlier in the episode that I've been getting into bookbinding. I really enjoy that. That's a lot of fun. It's peaceful. You work with your hands. You've got a functional little notebook at the end of it, or journal, or it's a great little gift to give friends and family. That's something I enjoy. Photography, I enjoy, mostly film, though I do have a digital camera. I use my R5C, both for B-roll shots, some stuff where I need autofocus, as well as taking monthly pictures and family photos for my kids' photo albums and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly film. Shoot with a little Nikon 83 point and shoot, which is great for documenting regular life, the mundane stuff. and then a Mamiya 7, which is my pride and joy. Still learning that. That's my first rangefinder, but I've been really enjoying it so far. Tiberian Marivalis. How did you become a leftist? I've mentioned this a few times before. Like most American lefties of a certain age, of my generation, God, I sound old now. Activated by the sleeper agent that was Bernie Sanders in his 2015 campaign, he started saying stuff that I had never heard before, and I was like, wow, we can do that? Like, we can have a decent life? We don't have to do this horrible hyper-capitalist, hyper-individualist thing? That's awesome. And from there, I just started reading theory because people were like, oh, he's not a real socialist, he's a social democrat. I'm like, well, what's the difference between socialist and social democrat? Or what's a democratic socialist? What do all these words mean? And so I started doing the reading, picked up some books on theory, read State and Revolution, and that was that. I think that's how it goes for a lot of young socialists in the United States. So for as disappointing as Bernie has been recently, becoming pretty much a lapdog for the Democrats, we have to credit him for making a lot of new socialists in the United States, and that is something worth celebrating. Vamp Moon, what made you decide to make the content you make? I find it helpful and informative. I'm glad you find it helpful and informative. I used to make all sorts of content. I like infotainment kind of stuff for like 7 years, 7 years, something like that. And eventually I was like, this sucks, I hate it, it's soul crushing, I don't care about any of this stuff. And it just so happened that burnout coincided with the awful American pandemic response. And I was like, and I had been learning about the socialism stuff for several years at that point. I'm like, I'm gonna make one video about socialism because that's important to me now. And if it tanks my channel, I'll go back to working at Best Buy, I'll sell cameras again. And thankfully it didn't tank the channel. People really responded to it positively. The channel really started to pick up growing again. Let me silence those notifications. I kind of took that ball and ran with it because people liked it. And I saw an opportunity for me to do something that felt more important while providing something that there wasn't a ton of on YouTube at that time. And thankfully it worked. It paid off. Yesent 3118. Any new cameras? Not exactly. The Mamiya 7. Let me go get it. I'll show you. This beauty, my Mamiya 7. Can you see that? Oh, let's see. It's in focus. I'm shooting with the Blackmagic, which does not have autofocus. I love it though. This thing is awesome. Medium format, 6x7 or 120 film, and it is really, really fun. It's quiet. I mean, it's not subtle or anything. It's enormous, but it's the leaf shutter, so it's just a tiny little click when you take the picture. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I've had it for a while. I found it new in box from like 2000 or even before. I think this was a 1998 model. I think. Don't quote me on that. But I snagged that because I had been looking for a long time for one in great shape, and when I found one new in box, I grabbed it. Took a while for the wallet to recover from that one. But I didn't have a lens for it because I didn't want to spend the additional money for a lens, so it just sat in a box in the closet waiting. And then my wife got me the 80mm f4 for my birthday last year, which was a very thoughtful gift. And I've been shooting with it. I took it to an undisclosed location where I went with Hakeem and Ugopnik for our last deprogram meetup. Shot a bunch of rolls. It's a cool camera. So that's the newest one in that I haven't used it much yet. Based Comrade 5915, how's the new baby doing? Well, you can see how he's doing from my new shirt here. He's been spitting up a lot, but otherwise he's healthy. Evie and Thomas and Kelsey and I have all been sick for like a month because Evie started preschool a month ago-ish. But yeah, Tommy's a sweet little guy, very agreeable, very rarely cries, very smiley, sociable guy. It's going well, all things considered. We're tired, but you know, that's how it goes. Cartoon 49, what's your favorite movie of all time? Favorite movie of all time? That's a really hard one. The one that stayed with me more than a lot of them is Stalker. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. the one that I watch almost every time I'm on a plane. I don't know why. I always look for it, and that's Arrival, which is a great sci-fi movie. Really enjoyed that one. And funnily enough, none of the main characters are my favorite actors, but really great movie, that one. This is really hard to drink around the paper. Yeah, I'll leave it at those two. I'm sure others will come to me. I'll mention them if they do. This is JO2089. Are you a supporter of the stream of socialism which the Chinese are following, or do you think it's time for a whole new try in socialism? Greetings from Germany. Howdy. I am very optimistic about what China is doing. There's a reason the U.S. is going so hard on the anti-China propaganda. It's because they're eating our lunch in every way possible. If you've never visited China, I highly recommend it. It is amazing. It is like visiting the future, some of their cities. Even like their tier 2 and 3 cities are immaculate, pristine, incredibly technologically advanced, and just way more forward-thinking than what we have here in the States. So yeah, I'm bullish on China. I'm China-pilled. But it's like they're not saying that what their version of socialism with Chinese characteristics, is applicable to every country around the world, and I think that is correct. Every state has its own peculiarities, and we would need to take a look at those, figure out what works, what applies socially, culturally, and then go from there, as we've seen China do. And it's there's a big debate to be had. Oh, is China socialist? I just take their word for it and say they say no, but we hope to be there by 2050. Good enough for me. None of yours, 5836. Can you list some leftist orgs one can join? DSA, CPUSA, PSL, FRSO. I think those are the only ones that are considered generally reputable and have relatively few controversies. I'll list all of them in the description. You can check those out. I have worked with DSA and CPUSA fairly extensively. They both do good work. It varies by chapter. But yeah, check any of the, whatever is in your area. Check them out. Drop them a line. They would love for you to come to a meeting. And it's a cool experience. Give it a try. Delta R9A3. I'd be interested to know how many people are involved in the creation of each video and roughly how many man-hours go into each one. Okay. I've mentioned before there are 3 of us full-time. Sometimes we work with an outside editor as we need to, depending on our bandwidth. And we've just started working with a guy on thumbnails sometimes, because I'm terrible at thumbnails and I hate doing them. Let's see, if it's full-time for each of us, we each do 40 to 60 hours a week, depending on the complexity of the topic. So call it, just say 40. So that's, you figure 120 hours, man-hours of work per video, roughly. And it varies. Again, some are easy. Like this one's not going to take as long because I'm doing all of it myself. But yeah, figure 120 and then 3 full-time people working on each one. All right, Misty C, how about a day in the life of? Share with us what your life looks like, what your passions are, what you're doing, how it's all going, personal perspective. That's very nice. I wake up early, usually to screaming, one child or another screaming for mommy. Not daddy. I'm not butthurt about that at all. And then I'll get up, feed the dogs, Trazodone the dogs. They're incredibly high-strung, bless their little hearts. Their names are Bandit and Bagel. They're healer pit mixes. They have endless energy. Hang out with Evie for a while, or Thomas, depending on what needs doing that day. Breakfast. Try to get a little bit of outside time in the morning just to get some fresh air. Speaking of Bandit and Bagel, they are barking at something outside the shed. Hope you don't hear it. And then it just varies by day. A meeting at least once a week with the team, check in, see how we're all doing on our assigned bits and bobs. Get cracking on the day's work. Oftentimes that's recording deprogram, editing deprogram, lining up guests, that sort of thing. Upload chores depending on the day. So I have to post each video early to Patreon and Means. I need to make sure everything is monetized. If we have a sponsor, I need to coordinate with them, make sure the content they feel that it's safe to their credit, they have never, on second thought, shot down a video or asked me to change anything, or said, oh, we're a little iffy on this one. So I really appreciate that from them. Then usually it's just a mix of dealing with baby and toddler stuff, helping out around the house, and coming in here to work. So it's like anybody else's job, except my office where I go to work is like 30 feet from the house, so I'm often interrupted to do house and baby things, which is fine. I that's the way I want it. I'd like to be able to spend as much time as possible with the family, even if sometimes that means my work is a little bit fragmented. But yeah, the things that take the most time for me are things like this, where I'm doing a full video myself, editing, shooting B-roll. I hate shooting B-roll, or editing deprogram. I'm very particular about separating all the audio tracks. We each record our audio locally, so I can mix and master. You got mixed very loud, I'm not very loud, and I need to try to balance those two, stuff like that. Hakeem records in front of an open window or an air conditioning unit or under the bed, so I have to clean up his audio, stuff like that. But yeah, it's a job like anybody else's. Wake up, breakfast, work, lunch, work, dinner. Go to bed at 10 o'clock after watching an episode of The Sopranos. Johnny T. I've heard from one socialist organization that the reason socialism hasn't lasted in the countries where it was implemented is because it can only be successful, quote, if everyone does it. That feels preposterous since it's impossible to get every country on board at the same time. What would you say to that? Yeah, I think that would be the Trotskyists that you're talking about there. That is a ridiculous assertion. Countries are at different stages of development. They have different national peculiarities. They have different material conditions. You cannot force socialism on every country at once. It doesn't work like that. That will be an imposition, and it will be dismantled or collapsed because they're not ready, or because the CIA has something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, look at China. China's working towards socialism very successfully. The Soviet Union is not around anymore. They had a different approach than China has had, and regardless of what you think of both projects, China is still on the path to socialism, and the USSR is no longer around, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's a foolish perspective to assume that socialism can't last because every other country on earth is not socialist. That's ridiculous. Michael K., what is your research process like for producing a show that is either finding root cause or portraying the development of a system, oppressive or not? Like, what's our research process for in general? We'll typically go through just an ideation process. Think of, okay, what topic haven't we covered, or what topic have we not seen other people cover particularly well? Then once we have an idea that sounds cool, and oftentimes these ideas will just come to us scrolling the news or whatever, or reading a book. And then we will go and look if anyone's done it before, if anyone's covered it. If they've covered it poorly, we make note of that so we can kind of correct the record there, or dunk on them. We don't punch left, but if like Ben Shapiro's covered it or something, that's fun to include. Just kind of take it apart a little bit. If no one has covered it, then we'll look around and see, like, okay, what's the closest somebody's done? Is there a book on the subject? Is there an expert we can reach out to? That's why we started doing interviews, so we can get some expert opinions on things. And then from there, it's just a process of taking whatever sources we can find, primary, secondary, books, articles, interviews directly with subject experts that we found, and piecing it together. You write it like any other persuasive essay. That's pretty much it. Usually once you find one good resource, it kind of snowballs into others through citations and footnotes and stuff. So if you've ever written a persuasive paper where you need to cite your sources, it's pretty much just like that. Emberly M. Where do disabled people fit into socialist system? From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. The whole discussion around disability is completely lost in capitalism. Like, under capitalism, if you are not, the quote-unquote normal, productive worker drone, you are less than worthless, and that is completely unacceptable in a society where, or in a time where there is such material abundance and it could be distributed as needed. Accommodations could be made as needed, and we have technology to address a lot of the problems that stem from disability. whether physical or mental. So that is something that every socialist project that is worth anything at all needs to consider. And it's not something I'm super familiar with in past socialist projects. I know, and maybe I should do a video on it. Maybe I'll reach out to, if you have any experts in the field of disability, reach out. I'll see what I can come up with, because that is such a core part of socialism, where the marginalized need to be have a voice and a say just as much as the the strong Soviet worker or whatever. Everybody has a say in socialism. That's the point. So if we leave our disabled comrades out to dry, what's even the point of what we're doing? So same role as everybody else under socialism. Roanship, what kind of games do you like to play? Well, I don't have much time for games these days, but I've been playing a little bit of Peak. I don't know if you heard that. Been playing a little bit of Peak. I'm terrible at it. We have not made it past the Caldera. So yeah. Other than that, I played the Battlefield 6 open beta recently when that was out. I quite enjoyed it. Battlefield 1 and Battlefield Bad Company 2 are two of my absolute favorite games of all time. And I was thrilled that Battlefield 6 was not terrible like 2042. Zaidan, if you could organize all of us, your loyal followers, once a year to do one thing, just one, whether it be donate to a specific charity, call a politician, storm the Capitol, don't do that. I don't condone that. Something small that we could all do without much consideration, what would you ask us to do this year? Join an organization. I don't care which one it is. Please get involved. We're a community of 1.87 at time of recording million subscribers. That blows every socialist organization out of the water in the United States. Plenty of bigger ones around the world. But if we could, like a fraction of that, just joined DSA, CPUSA, FRSO, PSL, that would be such a huge benefit to socialist organizing in the United States, or wherever you are. But I'm in the U.S., so it's not what I know best. Just reach out. It's not scary. Like, once you go, you will come away so invigorated and much, much more hopeful than you were before you went into that meeting. It's awesome. That is what I would ask. Red Wizard, you've referenced What Is to Be Done and Left-Wing Communism a few times, but would you consider producing a video that outlines what the lessons of those books are? One lesson that seems to often be overlooked in the discourse around Leninism is his advocacy for electoralism as part of the overall strategy. Having clarity on that part of the Leninist strategy would, and the broader strategy as a whole, would be valuable for viewers, I think. Yes, take the wins where you can get them. Like, I'm optimistic. Well, I'm not necessarily optimistic. I'm glad to see Mamdani has done so well. This is not the first time we've seen a socialist candidate do very well, even in New York. We got a video on that coming fairly shortly. So yeah, take your electoral wins if you can find them. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. You got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. That's just how it goes. Take your wins where you can find them, and put your effort where you think it'll be the most valuable. If that's going for a local election, on a city council, and you think you can do some good, that's great. Go for it. If you think your time would be better spent organizing outside of electoral politics, that's great too. Tenants unions, things like that, awesome. Whether I'll make a video specifically on it, that's not really what Second Thought is about. We try to stick to the broader 101 level stuff where people can then do their own research if they're interested. It's the type of thing that we would include as a talking point, but probably not make a whole video about, because that would get about 2,000 views, and that's not something we can afford to do, unfortunately. This is being the biggest socialist channel on the platform comes with some unfortunate stipulations. We have to attract as wide an audience as possible, not scare them away, not bore them to death, and not get age restricted, so that we can continue to grow and bring in the revenue we need to support 3 full-time salaries. Eli, JT, where do you get your Magic the Gathering proxies? DM me in the Second Thought Discord. This Eli is a patron, so he has access to the Discord. Just shoot me a DM. I'll give you the rundown. I've got like, how many now? 30 Magic decks, Commander decks, something like that. The quality of the proxies is better than Wizards of the Coast cards. You still buy some if you want to support your local game store, stuff like that. But if you're just doing kitchen table magic, I see no problem with proxies. Soul 6? Soul VI? I don't know. Do you have any advice on motivating yourself to read more books? I'm trying to get more into Marxian literature and all things in between, but I find it hard to dive into. Yeah, it can be kind of dry. However, that being said, there are some really fascinating and engaging writers out there today, contemporary writers. It's not just all the old dusty tomes. What I have had success doing is kind of going back and forth between theory and some for fun reading, fiction. I like sci-fi, so I've been reading the Sun Eater series, and that's been great. Has some themes that resonate with socialists. Yeah, give yourself a break. Take it easy. Don't try to read all of them, like the whole socialist canon in one little stretch. Take your time. And I guess one thing I've heard is that you just gotta, when you are reading theory, just treat it like a job. You shouldn't wait to be inspired to read it. You shouldn't wait to feel the motivation to do it. You just got to show up, say, I'm going to read 30 minutes a day until I get through this book. You put in your 30 minutes, check, you're done for the day. That's one way to do it. She does maths. I often get told the best thing I can do to help out is join a union. But for those of us who are too disabled to work and are therefore kept poor, is there any action we can take? I don't know your specifics, but generally speaking, anybody at all can join a socialist organization and contribute in some way, whether that's designing flyers if you have graphic design skills, whether that's just being a voice at a protest, whether it's helping out at a food kitchen or an aid drive or medical aid, stuff like that. There are lots of ways you can contribute, probably that you haven't even thought of before. Even online, like a lot of organization chapters have like a digital book club, which you could facilitate or participate in. If you haven't noticed yet, my answer to a lot of these questions is join a socialist organization. They'll have specific answers for you that are particular to your community, which is great. Ellie, would you ever make a video on the Western world outside the USA, such as Canada, the UK, or other parts of Europe? Politics online is very America-focused, true. And I, as a Canadian, sometimes struggle to understand my place in the world. Canada has made many valuable contributions to life on Earth. First and foremost, Trailer Park Boys. So thank you for that. We've done a couple of videos on French politics because our producer and head writer is very familiar with French politics. We've done a little bit on Canada, but obviously we're a US-based channel, so that's what we know best. We'll try to broaden our perspectives a little bit when we can, but again, just like the business necessities of the channel and the realities of our audience makes it less enticing to do stuff beyond the US because that's what most of our audience knows and wants. Bob W., what are your thoughts on Zoran Mamdani? Great. We had a deprogram episode about Mamdani. Was it? No, it was First Thought. We had a First Thought episode on Mamdani fairly recently, and we've got one coming out on Second Thought 2 episodes from now, I think. Yeah, I think 2 episodes from now, something like that, in time for the election. Generally positive. Obviously, a lot of the milquetoast social democrat policies are not sufficient, but they're absolutely a step in the right direction, and we should support that for sure. Vinjar R. Being a Norwegian citizen, I wonder. Everybody points to the Nordic economic model as an example to follow, and it used to be, but even that model is being consumed by capitalism. Why? Okay, so the Nordic model, what a lot of people new to the politics call social democracy, is still capitalism. So regardless of how much you attempt to defang capitalism, the inherent logic of the system will always yield the same result over time. You give yourself a bit more runway with social democracy because it's not as fierce and violent as unfettered capitalism like we have in the United States. But slowly, all of those perks and social programs and the human face on their capitalist project will be peeled away and reveal the capitalist logic beneath. You run the simulation a million times and you're always going to get the same result, which is what the US is careening towards right now. Western Europe is following. The Nordic countries will follow behind that as well. Unless you pull out the root of capitalism entirely, it's like no mixed economy nonsense, we're always going to end up right back here, because power and wealth will consolidate in fewer and fewer hands, monopolies will form, the government will be captured by these oligarchs. That's how it works. That is the nature of capitalism. That is how it must work for it to make any sense whatsoever. It's not that it's evil, though one could argue that it is. It's just that is how the machine has to function. Yeah, I don't, like a lot of people, social democracy seemed very appealing at first. You're like, oh, this is like a happy middle ground between capitalism and socialism. Still capitalism. The two cannot coexist. Jen L., I was curious why you and your family moved out of Texas. I used to live in the Grapevine area. Oh, howdy, partner. We were neighbors. I used to hang out in Grapevine all the time. And moved a couple of years ago to New York State for a multitude of reasons, including the political dynamics in Texas. But I was curious if your move was prompted by the same reasons, and where did you end up? No. In fact, I would say that Texas is no more reactionary than somewhere like Oregon, frankly. And I know that's surprising to a lot of people, but I encountered less racism, less bigotry, less liberal nastiness in Texas than spending even a week in like Seattle or Portland. Not to say those aren't nice places to go or to live or whatever, and there are thriving socialist groups there, but Texas is not the hellhole that people seem to think it is. It is in some ways, like anywhere. It's got its problems. But no, we moved because we had one young kid at the time, and now we've got a second, and I've got family out here. So we wanted to be close to family, have the kids grow up with their grandparents around, which is important to us. So that's why we came out here. Will we stay here? I don't know. Probably not. South Carolina, by the way. But for now, it's nice. Nice seeing all the green. There was not a lot of green in Texas. Timothy R., your journey in real-life organizing. Do you have time to be in an organization? I know you'd avoid talking about which one, just to not give the channel a party-focused tone, but what's it been like if you have? What are some of the difficulties you see in real-world organizing versus making videos? Good question. Yes, I've worked with, I mentioned it before, I've worked with DSA and CPUSA pretty extensively. The problems are always the same, and that is they do not use the tools at their disposal, this is at the national level, to make a modern, compelling face for the organization. Like, there is no reason, CPUSA, the Communist Party of the United States, there is no reason that their like national meetings that they put out to the world on YouTube should look like they were recorded in a dungeon. It's a Zoom call. They don't have a proper microphone. They don't have proper lighting. They don't have a proper camera. It is terrible and so disheartening. And I would really, really like to see that change. PSL, I believe, is doing fairly well in this regard. I haven't looked into that much. But like CPUSA, come on. If you're gonna try to be the Communist Party in the United States, you gotta step it up. You gotta, like I did this, for the longest time, it was just me on this channel. And I grew to be the largest socialist platform in the United States by myself. One dude and a laptop and a little bit of knowledge about cameras. That drives me up the wall. It is, that being said, you got a lot of moving parts to be charitable. You have to deal with the internal politics of the national branch, which is often frustrating. Everything has to be democratically done, which is a lot more, it's good, but it's a lot more difficult than with, like, it's just me. I can do whatever I want. I can be a lot more nimble, do things more quickly. So Yeah, these are things that will be fixed eventually with the right leadership at the helm. But in the meantime, it's like, oh, this is why the right can dunk on us so badly. Like every right-wing grifter has a better setup than 99% of socialist organizations and creators. So if you know how to use a camera, no one else is going to do it. Please get involved. Show the organizations how it's done. Offer to help them build out their media apparatus, or just make a channel yourself. Do something to help with the image thing. It's a bald hedgehog. How far along is your car build? Done with an asterisk. Runs, drives, it's my daily. It's got a lot of cosmetic issues and some like I need to really work on the interior. Some of the panels are falling off in the trunk. The headliner is like the previous owner's kid drew all over it. It's 33, 34 years old, so it's an older car, and it's incredibly resonant driving that thing around. It is too loud. So I need to rip out the interior, put some sound deadening treatment in there, and then address the exhaust as well, because the exhaust is way too loud. I want to put a valved exhaust on it to be a little bit more sleeper, and also not to annoy the neighbors or wake up the kids when I leave in the car. But yeah, it's fully functional, runs, drives, a lot of fun. Emma, hi JT, I'd like to ask your wife's opinion on socialism/communism. Your channel, her opinion on socialism, your channel, and has she met our boys Hugo and Hakeem? I ask as a wife myself, but with a husband who is not very impressed with my recent socialist awakening. Ooh, sorry about that. Yeah, Kelsey is very supportive. In fact, if it weren't for her, I would not have pursued this channel. We were married, very newly married at the time when I started this channel, back when I worked at Best Buy. And I had a little bit of success on one video. The NASA video kind of blew up. And I said, hey, Kels, if my videos keep performing like this, I think I can quit my job and do this, like work on this full time. And she was like, okay. And so with her blessing, I quit and gave all my effort to building this YouTube channel, and thank goodness it worked. But yeah, she's always been supportive. She comes from a conservative, religious, traditional background in Zimbabwe, but her perspective has really changed over the years, and now she considers herself a socialist as well, which is great. And it's not a requirement. A marriage can be healthy with disagreement, politically speaking, but it is nice to have that camaraderie there. And hey, who knows? Maybe your spouse will come around. Has she met Hugo and Hakeem on video call? Not in person, but she would love to. Time to Neb. Do you think you have to leave America someday? And if yes, where would you go? Do I think I'll have to? Probably not. Where would I go if I did? Maybe Spain. I visited Spain, spent a little time in Valencia, and where else did I go? Barcelona. And that was lovely. I really, really enjoyed that. So if I had to go somewhere, probably Spain. But I don't anticipate that will be the case. Nilowo, how do you maintain revolutionary optimism in times like these? It seems like the work we need to do gets more and more with each passing day, like fighting an uphill battle. It's mentally exhausting, but I still have hope. Touch grass. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. You will burn yourself out if you're always like looking at the most depressing things online. But also get involved. Once again, here's the answer. Join a socialist organization. The victories you will see at the local level are so heartening, and it's stuff that's never covered in national news. You know, like, why would it be? Like your little town wins some union, like tenants union organizing thing. That's great. That's incredible for your community. But like, what national network is going to pick that up? So you don't hear about these positive things that are happening. So that will help with your optimism, but also taking some time, step back, breathe, go outside, do something you enjoy, and that will really help a lot. Gamer theory of value. What are some things that we as leftists can do now, given that a lot of structures are falling apart? Everybody say it with me now. Join a socialist organization. Building dual power is the only way to have any kind of resilience in the face of capitalist collapse. If we don't have medical facilities, or teams at least, if we don't have people ready to take the levers at the water treatment plant, if we don't have people with a political program outlined, how is distribution going to work, things like that, we're in for a bad time. And we're not going to figure those things out if we're all sitting at home watching YouTube videos. Please watch the end of my YouTube video. But if we're all just sitting at home, isolated, alienated, and doing our own thing, so please do get involved with a socialist organization. That is the only way we will build dual power and alternatives to all of the structures that are indeed falling apart. Oh, how do you say this name? Hien Lagia? I don't know, sorry. Is the workload still enabling you to spend time with the family? Yes, thankfully, yes. That is, I prioritize that, so if one has to suffer, it'll be the work. And I would rather spend the time with the family and have to work late or early or whatever. Like have a really long, bad work day so I can take Evie to school if I need to, or if I can take Thomas to his doctor's appointment, or whatever needs doing, or just spend time with the family, going to a park or something like that. That is, like, my dad worked a lot to give us a good life. Like, we were dirt poor when I was born, and my dad worked really hard and gave us an education and things like that, a good trajectory. But he wasn't around because of that, because he was working so hard. And I don't want to be absent from my kids, so I'm prioritizing that. Celbro, why is socialism so unpopular? That I reject your premise. In the United States, in the Western world in general, it is very unpopular, primarily because of 100 years now of the most successful and well-funded propaganda campaign in human history. That being said, it does not have that stigma in the rest of the world. If you look at India, China, Africa, wherever, enormous socialist populations, socialist support, so many different socialist groups. It is, the American worldview is very small. We tend to think of, I'm going to steal you Gopnik's thing, the US is the main game and the rest of the world is DLC, which is just not the case. So we need to keep that kind of global perspective. But socialism is so unpopular because it has been slandered to death, undermined in every instance, no matter where it appears in the world, so they can pretend that it is organically unpopular, which is just not the case. There's a reason socialist projects spring up all over the place, and they always have enormous support from average people and enormous opposition from way, way fewer people, but with a lot more power. And that's pretty telling. But that is why socialism is so unpopular. It's not because it doesn't work, because it does work. The thing I always tell people is, like, they say socialism always fails. Like, okay, if socialism always fails, then why don't the capitalists just let it fail? Why do they need to send the CIA to meddle every time? Why do we need to start wars under false pretenses to topple socialist projects? That's why it's so unpopular. Hayden 5325. What's the best luck you've had getting people to truly listen to you even when opposing your beliefs? Don't treat it like an argument. Don't treat it like a debate. You're talking to a friend, a coworker, family member, a human being with their own beliefs that they don't hold those beliefs to antagonize you. They just believe those things because that's what they know. That's what they've been told. So if you just treat it like talking to a friend, you're like, you're talking about your problems. You share problems. I guarantee it. So they bring that up. You're like, yeah, man, that does really suck. I've been learning about that recently, and if you want, like, I promised I wouldn't talk about socialism, but I've read this cool book about why that's a problem. Stuff like that. You're just talking to a friend, and don't treat it like a one and done thing. It's going to be an ongoing conversation. At first, they're going to be super opposed to hearing you. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to be nasty. They're going to feel like you're attacking them. You think they're stupid. Just take it slow. And realize that some people are lost causes and you're not going to get through to them no matter what. But another approach that tends to work with the more conspiratorial-minded people, like your MAGA uncle and stuff like that, give them, like, what's the book? Killing Hope by William Blum. Any of the stuff that deals with the CIA and their secret plots and stuff like that, because they'll like the conspiratorial angle of it, and they'll slowly get drip fed the correct notion that, hey, maybe we're not the good guys in all these things. And there are a number of books like that, but Killing Hope I've had success with. Liana I8C, did the popularity of this channel have a positive effect on real-life organizing in your experience? Yeah, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but I have never gone to a socialist organization meeting where there haven't been at least a couple of people who come up to me and say, hey, this is really cool to meet you. I joined this organization because you told me to in one of your videos. I'm like, wow, that's really cool and also really weird because I'm just some dude with opinions and a laptop still. Like, even though we've got 1.87 million subscribers or whatever, I don't feel like I am contributing more than anyone else at a meeting. It's just, we're just all people doing what we can to further the cause. But yeah, the channel objectively has had an impact, and that's really, really cool. It's very heartening. Also a little scary that we have that much responsibility in building these organizations when it's like, that's the organization's job. But I'm happy to funnel people as much as we're able. Frosty Elk, do you have any plans to start making more interesting content, excuse me, to complement the entry-level stuff? I think you would have an interesting perspective to present in documentary-style presentation. I love documentaries. On overlooked books /history /philosophy /trends, but I also respect the importance of casual overviews to get people more used to the trends of Marxist analysis. Yeah, yes, and that kind of goes into one of the questions I have to ask you people, you lovely piggies, after we're done with this Q&A section here. Yes, we would like to branch out a little bit, but we got to be careful not to dilute the message too much. We got to be careful not to narrow the scope of the channel too much. I don't want to be a booktuber and talk about theory and stuff like that. But I would absolutely love to do some documentaries, some one-off documentaries where there's a topic that's too big to cover in a video, and we have some time to work on it. And that's something we would like to work on with Means, because they can give us some funding, which would be tremendously helpful in like doing travel and stuff like that. But yes, that is something that we have in the pipeline. It just remains to be seen what form that will take. Val Clements Q8C. How does it feel being one of the main and biggest socialist YouTube channels? Honestly, incredibly depressing and a little bit alarming. There's no reason some guy from Texas with an opinion and a little bit of knowledge about camera. Okay, I'm a camera nerd. I will give myself that. I'm good with cameras. But the biggest channel, me? Come on. And it's I think disingenuous to claim that I am the biggest, yes, by sheer numbers, but most influential, no way. That's probably Hassan. Thank you, Hassan, for always watching my stuff on stream, by the way. It's cool. Like, I'm glad we've been able to have a positive impact, but also I really, really want other people to join us at the 1 million plus level here with socialist content, with polished content, with stuff that wins normal people over, that gets people involved in organizations and stuff like that. That's not shot in your bedroom. It's not that hard. It's hard to grow a channel like that, and I had an unfair head start because I pivoted hard from my original content at 750,000 subscribers. But that being said, it's not that we've gained fewer subscribers since the shift. We've blown that 750,000 out of the water. So you can do it. There is a big audience for socialist content. So I am humbled, also concerned. Because what happens if something happens to me? If I get hit by a truck or someone sticks a potato in my tailpipe, you know? I don't think I'm going to get CIA'd, by the way. I'm not paranoid at all. But it would be nice to see some other channels really start to grow. User, lot of letters and numbers. How do you balance your work and being a father, and would you prefer being a father earlier or later? I talked about the work-life balance thing a little bit earlier. Would I prefer being a father earlier or later? I think we Kelsey and I waited the right amount of time. We wanted to settle into our relationship, just the two of us, for a while. So we had a good, solid foundation before we're put through the ringer of children. We wanted to be financially stable. We wanted to be somewhere where we could raise kids and have them go to good schools and stuff like that. So I think we waited the right amount of time. I wouldn't want to be a father later. I'm already falling apart and I'm 32. Earlier probably wouldn't have been a great call either, because that would have stunted the channel's growth, I think, if I had gone too early. So I think it was just I'm biased because it's the way we did it, but I'm pretty pleased with how we planned it out. It is so hard to drink this thing in the paper. Groggy Gary, where would a baby leftist learn more theory? I'm really eager to learn more about socialism and the like, but I have no clue where to begin. Hakeem, one of my podcast co-hosts, if you're not familiar, another YouTuber with a great channel, has at least a couple of videos specifically dedicated to reading lists. So go check those out. There will be something regardless of what you're interested in, whether it's history, economics, the hard science of theory, stuff like that, central planning. Check out those videos and you'll have a long list to read through. Quid quo, drop the hair care routine, comrade. That's very thoughtful of you. I fought my curls for the longest time. I buzzed my hair real short as a kid. Okay, so curly fellers, drop the shampoo as much as you're able. Shampoo like once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on how oily your hair is, because curly hair by default is much drier and frizzier. So you don't want to strip all those oils from your hair because you'll get a ton of frizz. There are a lot of curly guys out there that have a lot of frizz. You're shampooing too much. Condition every single time you take a shower. Some people will say leave the conditioner or some of the conditioner in after you rinse. Some people will say wash it all out. I've tried both. Either way is fine. I think if you leave some in and your hair is on the finer side, it'll weigh your hair down a bit. It just depends on what hairstyle you're going for. I use the Aussie products for conditioner, and the shampoo, it's a Bumble and Bumble clarifying shampoo, I think. And then as far as the styling products go, I've tried a bunch, and a lot of them just don't work. And it's very personal. I don't know what makes the difference, but for me, Miss Jessie's Multicultural Curls, which Hakeem always clowns on me for, my ethnic curls, is really good. It's not terribly expensive. It's like $11 or something. It's a really nice cream, smells good. Smooth a good amount of that into your hair after a shower. And then I follow that up with Diva Curl Ultra Defining Gel, a good bit of that too. And then I just blow dry it on as cold as possible. The heat will give you frizz. With a diffuser, don't use just the regular hairdryer. You have to use a diffuser. And I dry it to like 70% dry, and then I let it air dry the rest of the way. Wait as long as I can until it's dry to the touch, not tacky at all, and then you just kind of scrunch out the gel cast, and that should leave some nice defined curls. There you go. I think that's everything. Yeah, pretty sure that's everything. Hope it helps. Mark, when you aren't making slop for us piggies, what kind of slop do you most like to consume? Camera, content on YouTube. I've been going down a birding rabbit hole. I saw the video that Potato Jet made. He's a camera YouTuber. About he got into birding because someone told him it was like collecting Pokemon. I'm like, oh, I like collecting Pokemon. And then I was like, well, that does actually look like a lot of fun. And because I watched that one birding video, a bunch of others started popping up, and I watched a documentary made by a couple of guys from Minnesota, somewhere up north, and it's called Listers, and it's funny, it's well done, just lo-fi enough to be like not pretentious at all. Excellent documentary. If you've got 2 hours and you want to learn about extreme birding, watch Listers. It's very, very good. What was the question? Oh yeah, what slop do I like? We've been watching Sopranos with dinner, really enjoying that. Before the Sopranos, we watched I don't remember. We've watched a lot of Star Trek, For All Mankind, which was pretty good. Foundation. I know this is going to be blasphemy to the people who really like the books, but I like the books too, but I also enjoy the TV show. It's good slop. Yeah, that's mostly it. Car stuff on YouTube as well. Cars, cameras, and good TV. I guess I don't count books as slop, but I read a lot of sci-fi books. The Expanse is fantastic. Red Rising. I almost stopped reading the first book because at that point, I really didn't like the first-person books, and I think it was not his finest work. But if you get through that first book, excellent series. Same with the one I'm reading now, which is the Sun Eater series. First book is a little slow, even the second book. But once you hit book 3, you're like, oh, this kind of rocks. And I'm currently on the last book that has been released. And I think, if I remember correctly, he just finished the next one, which is exciting. Wildfire Kitsune, you ever going back to Nebula? Absolutely not. Misha Bien, I have one question, and a question that's a bit depressing. How many people like us are there really in the world? How big is our proletarian movement? That's not a depressing question, and we kind of touched on this earlier. The Western world is fiercely anti-communist. The rest of the world is not really. If you look at polling of Eastern European countries, former Soviet bloc countries, the majority of them, or the majority in the majority of those countries, always respond in polling that they wish they could go back to the Soviet Union. They wish they could go back to socialism, to Yugoslavia, to wherever their country was. If you look at India, enormous socialist population, incredibly fragmented with their dozens and dozens of groups, but huge population, a huge socialist population. Same with China. Millions and millions of people. So I wouldn't get too down, because realistically, the United States is a powerful country. It's a fairly large country, but in terms of population, so what if we don't have the most socialists in the world? Our population is growing. It's learning. It's organizing, making connections abroad, working with, like the CPUSA, I helped with a couple of years worth of international conferences where we worked with socialist groups from around the world, had different speakers from China, from Canada, from all the other socialist parties around the world, Cuba. So there are a lot of socialists and communists around the world. Again, we can't think of the United States as all there is. It is what we know, a lot of us here watching this channel, but it's not all there is, and that information is hidden from us, intentionally. You thought the Red Scare was over. It is absolutely not. There's a reason all the communist projects are slandered as evil authoritarian regimes, when it's really just the people having spoken and said, we're not doing capitalism. That is not for us. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. Are they more egalitarian, more in line with what the majority wants? Yes. So don't get depressed about numbers of socialists in the United States. And even if you just look at the United States, we're growing. Like I said, more and more people joining socialist organizations, and more will join after this video, right? So yeah, don't be depressed. That is not something that you should fret about. The world will find a way to shove off the boot of capitalism, whether it's pleasant or not, whether it comes before or after collapse. That's not to say we should be complacent or anything and say, oh, we'll get there, it's inevitable. It's not inevitable. We have to put in the work. But the rich and powerful can only hold off the 99% of humanity for so long. They've had a good run. Now it's time that we do the work and dismantle that. All right, I think we're going to call it there for this Q&A. I'm going to go back in time, go over to that desk. I'll have my white shirt on again. You can pretend like that was shot after this. I really shot it before. A little peek behind the curtain. Movie magic. See you in a sec. I think we'll call it there for this Q&A. There were a bunch more questions, but I would never have time to get to all of them. Thank you so much for submitting them. There were a lot of really good ones, a lot of kind of deranged ones, so I appreciate all of them. If you guys like this format, we can do 1 or 2 of these a year for a bit of variety and to get to all those questions. But also I said I have a couple questions for you. We're always trying to produce interesting videos, but we're also aware that it's easy to get burned out on depressing political subjects. So I guess our main question for you is, what do you want to see on this channel? Do you like the 101 level stuff? Is it time we branched out into politics adjacent stuff, looking at cultural topics that may not be specifically related to socialist ideas? Do you have any topics that you'd really like to see covered? Basically, what are we doing that you like? What are we doing that you don't like? And what does your ideal second thought look like? Let us know in the comments below. We are super excited to keep building the channel and produce even better content for you all to enjoy. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Thank you for your financial support through Patreon or means. And thank you for believing that a better world is possible. We'll see you next time. That was easy.